Welcome back. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the Minnesota Vikings 3-round mock draft. So, Ryan, if you want to pull up the slides here, I'll orient you a little bit to what you're looking at. So, obviously, the name in bold and in purple, that is the Vikings pick. We're going to get to that here in a second. We wanted to include a couple of the teams and their picks before and after, just to give some context of who was unavailable and available at the time the Vikings picked in our mock draft. Also to the right, probably figured it out by now, but a couple other names that we think they could end up going with here and the teams that selected them. So end up going with Jared Verse here. I really like this pick because I was thinking about it. Daniil Hunter is going to be a free agent. He's 33 years old. Jared Verse is 23 years old, and they're almost about the same height and weight. It's almost like just a complete younger version. It almost seems like. And when I look at the Vikings team, I think blitz over half the time. Last season, thanks to that new philosophy of Brian Flores. Essentially, it's like we're not going to give you an opportunity to try and just pick us apart. So, that strategy worked for a good bit of the season, I would say. Unfortunately, didn't make it to the playoffs. But I think it's nothing too. They were just, I think, overall just void of talent. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they have good players. Don't get me wrong, but in general, though, they just didn't really have a good defensive overall playing setup. So they just need to get younger and just more talent at the position. I think Jared Verse comes in there and is an instant day one starter. And I think Brian Flores is going to have a bunch of fun with it.
Yeah. And I will say, so one of the things here, I really like Jared Verse. He's my top edge rusher in this class. He is that more kind of traditional defensive end, but I think he can be moved around. He can play standing up. He can play with a hand in the dirt. And he's good against both the run and the pass. He's a really solid all-around player. I will say, I do think the Vikings are lacking a little bit on draft capital. I think this could be a trade back spot, potentially. I believe they have this and then a third.
A second. So they have
this in a second.
They have 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and 2 sixths.
Okay. So to me, it's still really lacking in that top 100. I do think this could potentially be a trade back spot, especially just because I think this team needs so much on the defensive side of the ball. And defensive talent is a dime a dozen in this class, right? I think that all of the top 8 picks are most likely going to be offensive players. And then I think once you get into the 10 to 30 or even almost 40 range, that is going to be a very dense and consistent group of players where it's going to be kind of fluid. There are going to be players, for example, Kool-Aid McKinstry could be your top corner in the class. He could also be corner 5 and fall out of the first round. That is kind of how consistent a lot of these guys are across the board. And it really just kind of depends on what flavor of player you're looking for. And I think the Vikings are a team, they need more players. Good players, and so I think they could be a potential move back spot here. Other guys, Jerza Newton is the defensive tackle out of Illinois. To me, if they go this route, I wouldn't be surprised. They need that interior, kind of run stuffing defensive tackle, but Jerza Newton can also get after the quarterback really, really well. Mentioned Kool-Aid McKinstry, who went about 8 picks later. And then also Troy Fatanu getting some offensive line depth, especially for Kirk Cousins coming off a torn Achilles if they do re-sign him. If not, they're going to have a young quarterback under center. And I do have a feeling Chicago will not be trading Justin Fields to the Minnesota Vikings. So most likely going to be one of the older guys there. One of the younger quarterbacks there that they're going to have to thrust into a starting role. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting then as well, kind of leading into the next pick, talking about the quarterback position.
Yeah.
It is just because we did do this mock draft before the Senior Bowl. And so we're recording this on Thursday night, February 8th, just because we're trying to do a division a day, essentially. And even watching the Senior Bowl, Michael Penix, I thought, looked he was the best quarterback that was there. And so it's almost, I think, in my opinion, in a second tier of his own, outside of those top 3 QBs. And so it's going to be very curious on how teams value him here, because we obviously have the Vikings selecting Michael Penix here, start building that future. I think he would be really good with this Minnesota Vikings offensive system under Kevin O'Connell. But I think Bo next fall, I think Spencer Rattler honestly maybe grew a little bit.
Yeah. He went from a day 3 to a mid day 2 in my eyes, like early round 3, I think.
Yeah, a potential development, but I think Bo Nix fell a little bit, and I think Michael Penix came the more clear cut. JJ McCarthy was the other name I was thinking. How are teams going to value JJ McCarthy?
Yeah.
Still haven't really gotten a good overall feel for him yet there. So I think that they do need to start planning for life after Kirk Cousins, or even they've already done that, and it's like we're not going to re-sign Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury, so we're going to go get Michael Penix here. And that goes back to your point, though, earlier about a potential trade back spot. They trade back, maybe Penix does then, depending on how far back they go, they'll just take him in the first round, or even then, too, they'll get the draft capital to then trade up here into the early second round and take Michael Penix.
Yeah, I will say, so like I think teams like New England, if New England wants to go the Marvin Harrison Jr. route, they will definitely be in play for Michael Penix Jr. And then I'm trying to think of the teams in the back half of the first round. I don't think anybody would be there, but I do think potentially trading up, like the Falcons could trade back up into the first round if they miss out on a quarterback and don't get Justin Fields in that trade. Like there are other routes I think for Michael Penix to go. It'll just kind of be interesting to see where he falls, because I do think he has talent to be a back end of the first round quarterback. It's just if there's going to be a team there that has the need for him to be there.
I'll say it here on this Minnesota Vikings video, but maybe Miami could be one of those teams. Just a hunch, just a theory, I would think.
That would be very controversial. But
I know. Yeah, I know. So that's about it, though. Just kind of recap: Jared Verse, then Michael Penix Jr. Looking forward to our 7-round mock draft. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. So when that comes out, should be coming out here. I think Ryan and I are going to start working on that within the next week or so. So definitely be coming out here in February. But we're doing a 7-round mock draft for every single team. I think that, if you go and get Jared Verse and then Michael Penix Jr., I think you're helping out your defense now, and I think then you're also going to slowly start to prepare for the future offensively.
Yeah.
I don't think Minnesota's in a. It's weird saying because I don't know if they're in a win now mode. I'll get that thought out there now. Even though they have probably the best receiving room in the league. Even though I say that though, TJ Hawkins is going to start the year on IR because he's going to be recovering from an ACL injury. Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in the league. Jordan Addison had a phenomenal year. It's just going to all depend on.
Yeah.
I say all that though, but I think they need to improve the offensive line, particularly on the interior. They need to figure out the QB position. I think they definitely need to improve the running back room, but I wouldn't improve the running back room until you figure out the offensive line. Defensively, there's a lot of void of talent, I would say, in general, and you just don't have that top-end draft capital. So if the board works out this way, they take the first defensive player off the board, is that a good plan for them? Or if there's already been a couple of guys and some of the guys that they like are already off the board, do they trade back and get more draft capital? I think that's just going to be intriguing to watch how Minnesota kind of navigates this 2024 offseason, especially once they get to draft night, because anything could happen on draft night.
Yeah, and that's what, they're one of those teams where it's going to be so hard to predict what they do, because they could be moving all around the board. They could just stand pat with their picks. They could go offense. They could go defense. There's not one clear identifiable need for this team, other than I think they just need more I don't want to say
talent.
More good players, because that's kind of a stupid thing to say, but they have the elite talent, I think, kind of built out on their roster with Justin Jefferson. Christian Darrisaw is a really solid player. If they bring back Kirk Cousins, they don't need to address the quarterback position in the first round. And so then are they building up the defense, or do they want to solidify this offensive line and maybe go with a developmental guy in Michael Penix like we did? It's just a really interesting scenario to kind of see what they want to go forward and do. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Minnesota Vikings 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let us know what you would do differently. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.